Hi, I'm Sarthak. I'm currently in my second year at NLS, Bangalore. So we're a law and policy platform run by the students of NLS called Law School Policy Review and Quarterly Society. And we're coming out with a queer column, which is meant particularly for queer individuals who want to analyze law and policy through a queer lens. And these podcasts are an associated series of podcasts that we're doing along with the column, where we, in particular, talk to activists and lawyers who've been engaged in doing work for the queer community in India for a long while. Nidhi, can you take it up?
Yeah. Hi, Simran. It's really glad to have you here. And would you please tell us your pronouns?
My preferred pronouns are she and hers.
Right. So, Simran, we have heard a lot about you, about your work in the against the HIV/AIDS stereotypes that have been there against the LGBTQ community, as well as a queer activist in India. Would you want to take over and describe your work for us?
So I wear multiple hats. Currently, if you see my bread and butter comes from doing the HIV awareness work within the within India, pan India, and through that, what we do is we try to provide holistic and comprehensive services for our transgender folks, because the entire world, when it talks about just HIV, uh, there have been studies, there have been researches, there have been testimonials and live case studies where transgender needs are beyond HIV. So that's what we do for my 9 to 5 job. My second hat is where I am a founder of one of our organization called RWS, India's Diverse Chamber, where we connect the grassroots entrepreneurs, LGBTQI plus entrepreneurs with the global market. So there are markets available for high ends, but not for the grassroots level individuals. So we work with a lot of startups as well as we work with a lot of budding entrepreneurs who are trying to make their ways and trying to sort of make their end meet. So that's where we connect the dot and we become as a bridge. This is completely on a pro bono basis. We don't provide any financial resources, but we connect them with the global market so that they stand on their own feet and they do their business on their own terms rather than we dictating or sort of trying to show them the way. But we just act as a bridge. My
Yeah.
Yeah, Simran, you were talking about the third hat.
Yes. So the third hat that I really perform is not as an activist, but as an advocate. So I'm a firm believer of LGBTQI health and rights. My forte, my career lies of almost 2.5 decades now. And what I do is I promote health and rights for LGBTQI folks across India and internationally. I'm an advocate because I don't believe in holding slogans and shouting on top of my voice, but rather I believe in working with the system and getting the system changed. So it's a long process. It's a tiring process. It's a really aching job, but I love doing what I do, so I continue doing that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. But a next question would be, so you, but in particular, in your role as an advocate and an activist, particularly in India, what limitations have you faced, say in courts or while negotiating with parties that you have to enter into contracts to when you say help queer individuals in global markets? So what we want to know is that your work sounds really impressive and we're really glad someone is out there doing that. But what limitation in your own experience as a queer individual, helping queer individuals, have you faced, say, from the government or from the general public?
So let me take you a little, say, around a decade back when we actually started working and engaging ourselves with various government that we call our stakeholders. And this goes way back in 2008 while we were in Mumbai uh, and negotiating for transgender rights. That's when the entire story started, because we didn't have any constitutional support to identify as LGBTQI, and our identification was considered as a criminal act, because everything that was spoken about related to only sexual activity. Of course, to elevate that entire struggle, there was also an HIV/AIDS where there were myths and misconceptions that it is spread through a gay identified individual, and they are the carriers, they are the ones who actually spread HIV. However, scientifically, that was not proven true. Um, but during those days, that was just one struggle. Transgender were considered as mentally ill individuals. Many folks from the LGBTQI were struggling to be open and out as what they are. So very limited good case studies were depicted to the audience. And that's where our aggression, our frustration converted our leaders into activism to voice out, the human rights perspective started way, I mean, I actually started way beyond that. But the real struggle started with that moment. And by the time we reached 2009, the Delhi High Court sort of gave us the first ray of hope that, these individuals should be sort of considered as legal citizens of this country and should not be considered as aliens. In 2013, we again faced the Black Friday, where the justice were, the verdict were announced against the 2009 verdict. That was a complete Black Friday, but the Black Friday created a lot of hopes in second line leaders, and it went throughout the country that, now it's enough time, and slogans and a lot of, social media and campaigns were carried out of no going back on Section 377. And, a country had this beautiful wave. Then came the original verdict on April 15th, 2014, where the Honorable Supreme Court gave a judgment legalizing a subset of a beautiful umbrella term called LGBTQI for trans folks. And that was the turning point in the entire activism world. Tables were turned around. Few ministers had a leverage to open doors for trans folks to come and openly speak about LGBT, rights, the queer movement. And that's where the country picked up. But while we came to 2018, fortunately, the tables were in our favor. This all favor, non-favor, struggles was actually a dawn to a beautiful next generation. And the reason why I say to a beautiful next generation, because most of us, see, I'm in my, early 40s, and I did not have that secured um, human rights when I was a kid, when I was a adolescent, when I sort of, was barred for 22 years of my life from my biological parents and siblings. Um, but if you crib about what negativity has happened, you will never be able to grow. But if you keep your challenges, your struggles as a stepping stone towards success, then you can really climb on high and go to the other side and enjoy your rest of your life. And that's what many of our activists have done this, have practiced this, and yeah, that's where we believe we are. So struggles and challenges, I would term it in single line in Hindi is um, struggle and challenges are choli and daman of a human being.
That's really wonderful. That's a wonderful way to explain it. Really made both Sarthak and I smile. So, one thing I just in the queer world, like in the LGBTQ rights movement, I think it's very difficult to stay positive, right? Even after the Nafta's judgment came out, because there were a lot of things that were not addressed in the judgment itself. So, how does that play when you, let's say, try to adopt that kind of a mindset in your activism?
So a lot of debates were going on. A lot of communities, different ideology were placed during the consultations with the government, and many of the community members were unhappy. But the reality is, a wise human being has said something is better than nothing. At least that one door of the constitution had opened. And of course, we all know acts, rules, regulations, our constitutions have an opportunity for amendments, have an opportunity to bring the desired humanity into the books of laws. And that's where, we we acknowledged the constitution that was given, the rights that were given to us, sorry for that, the rights that were given to us. And then we promised ourselves that till our last breath, we would continue having various amendments to the existing constitution. So, for example, right now, after we are sort of recognized, the highest court of this country was asked the government to apologize to all the LGBTQI folks, which eventually did not happen. But coming from the Supreme, the highest court of the country, it gets you, it really, you have this goosebumps when the verdict comes out, like this kind of statement comes out. And that was our hope. Until today, we are sort of, fighting our cases for civil rights, for adoption rights, you name it, and we all are fighting for it. Yet we are not there, but we are there.
Thank you for that. Reminded me of one of the quotes I've read, which is that the most radical thing a queer person can do in their life is finding joy. I don't know how correct that is, but for a lot of queer people in this country, finding joy is a very tough task. And taking off from that quote, my next question to you is, after the Naz, Navtej, Nalsa, these judgments, a lot of their criticism was that they essentially singly and highly focused on right to privacy for queer individuals, which basically centered the debate on queer individuals' right to have sex with each other, and thus we got Section 377 struck down. But it's not just about your right to have sex, but your right to express your sexuality and to live as a queer individual, live a queer lifestyle. But in the current context, a lot of queer individuals don't have the access to healthcare, which is primarily what you work on, especially your work on HIV and AIDS. And this worsened after the COVID-19 pandemic, where transgenders were not allowed into centers where vaccines were being given. So, what do you think is the current barrier facing the queer community in India, and how do you think this can be resolved? And especially with the monkeypox epidemic also happening, gay men in the US are being blamed for the monkeypox being spread. So, what do you think can be done? What is the reason behind this, and what is your take on that?
So, Sarthak, honestly speaking, I think the karma, not the karma, but life is in a circular motion. We have gone way back in 1986 when the first HIV case was identified. Yet it was identified through a woman who was into a sex work industry, and it was identified through her, but yet it was claimed to be an gay men disease. Yet in 2022, we are talking about monkeypox, and yet it is, coined and it is connected with so-called gay black men being the conductors of this monkeypox, which is absolutely nonsense. I mean, we all know how monkeypox happens, but it's just that, somebody wants to tag somebody and somebody will have to say that. So it's a question of that somebody, do we really pay attention to that? Or should we just ignore and focus on actually the disease? So you talk about all the reputed organizations, researchers like WHO, that is the World Health Organization, all the international and the nodal health departments within the country also, like NARI, that's the National AIDS Research Center. We talk about NACO, which is the National AIDS Organization. These are all the nodal agencies of the Ministry of Health in the system, in the country. And everybody works just not on HIV, but the peripherals of HIV, like tuberculosis, like sexually transmitted infections, like hepatitis, various diabetics, cancer, you name it and you find it, all the possible diseases. The heads of those institutions do not consider that men who have sex with men, transgender, lesbian women, bisexual individuals, or queer individuals are the conductors of such kind of disease. And that's the biggest justification that we have. So you can't change everyone's mindset, but definitely science proves it all. You talk about the ICDs, you talk about various researches, documentation, IPAT, WPAT, all these organizations have clearly said that monkeypox is not spread by gay individuals or queer individuals. Now, what more stand do you need? I mean, grassroots पे जो लोग बोलते हैं वो बोलते हैं, उनका भी freedom of speech है. Now I can't be, we all, not neither you nor I can hold everyone's mouth just because they don't, many of them actually don't understand diseases, viruses. Many of them don't understand the health perspective of human being. And just to name it, just to coil it on somebody, the prey, the easy prey are the key populations. It could be women in sex work. It could be men who is injecting drugs. It could be transgender folks. It could be gay identified human beings. They are the easy prey, to hold them accountable. But research and evidence do not prove it. So we go with research and evidence, and that's where we actually win the cases, win the fight. But yes, the initial phase is quite difficult. changing the mindset of human beings, it's quite difficult. And Satvik, I just wanted to take one more minute to tell you, recently on Instagram, there is a page called Brood, and they had posted Gautam Yadav, who is a gay identified youth, just past his youth, and he's openly living with HIV. You'll be shocked to know, to read the public's review and comments. I am being brutally trolled right now. Honestly speaking, I'm brutally being trolled for my support to Mr. Gautam Yadav, who's openly living with HIV. And of course, he happens to be my very close colleague. We have worked in past, and currently we are very good colleagues. But I've been brutally told to support that individual. And people have, I mean, when I read people's mentality, I just feel so sad that they are so uneducated, unfortunately. They are educated, uneducated types of human beings. They have the knowledge, they know it from bottom of their heart, but just my ego stands more than your ego, so I win the case. It's like that. Now, I can't be changing that mindset, but yet we do fight with that. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you so much. I'm really sorry for what's happening right now. I think all of us in some ways have faced some kind of trolling and bullying because of our identity. And if we don't privilege call it country. Taking forward,
Nidhi, I'm
connection
so
is a
sorry
little
to
bad.
cut you. Nidhi, I'm so sorry to cut you. We can't hear you.
Yeah, can you now? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One second, I'm just checking my internet. Yeah, can you both hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So one thing that honestly, this is something that I think Sarthak had explored through multiple projects that he has done on queer activism, because he has written a lot on it. So we were having our Viva one day with our constitutional law professor, and something that came up really intrigued me. That was in the Nafteed judgment, queer people did not get the right to marry each other. But at the same time, do queer people actually want a heteronormative idea of a marriage? What does a queer family actually look like? So that is something I really wanted your opinion on.
So, and this is personally completely my opinion, and requesting not to be judgmental on my idea, but I honestly feel that, uh, there shouldn't be any sort of obligation for any queer individuals to get married. Now, whether you consider it as a heteronormative marriage or whether you consider it as a same-sex marriage. I mean, what is a marriage? According to the books of law, the marriage statement itself says it's a it's a unity of two human beings staying together. The original version of marriage definition was this. But then later amendments were brought in, and then they were coiled between genders, opposite gender. Now, I personally don't believe it's a marriage between any particular gender. It's up to an individual whether they want to be staying together in so-called on paper, which is according to the world called as a legal paper, or you just 1 minute. I'm going to upgrade. Okay. I don't know if the call does not upgrade eventually. What we can do is join on the same link. Okay. Sure. So it's about to end in 9 minutes 44 seconds.
Yeah.
Coming back to you, Nidhi. Um, my sort of idea is I don't believe in that so-called white paper with something written on it. For me, marriage is, yes, marriage is very important. I truly believe in love, but I don't believe that I need to get certified for that love. It's my choice. It's me whether I would love to have it. In case if I would love to have it on the white paper, then there should be a law which says, yes, you have a marriage certificate. But in case if I don't find, if I don't want to have that white paper and it's on a mutual understanding between two adult human beings, I think that should be uh, given the due respect to that human beings. This is my thought. Many of them do not agree with my ideology, but it's okay. Everybody has their own say, have their own thinking about.
Yeah, just a small follow-up. Sarthak, you can take after that. Uh, the one thing that I think we all think about is that there are a lot of legal benefits, obviously, that come out of a marriage, right? So if a queer person who is in a relationship or wants to marry another queer person, they lose out on all these benefits. For example, a joint bank account, etc. And eventually, even having children who would be called legitimate. So this idea, I think, becomes really difficult. So that is something that I think, if you would want to talk about.
So, honestly speaking, Nidhi, if you see the current scenario at the national level, many of the corporate agencies have given uh, permissions, legal rights to gay identified or queer folks to have their partners be nominated. Many of the health insurance policies have turned the table round in ensuring that the partners or the spouses or the non-blood relatives could be the nominees. The banking industry, few of the banks, like we can name it openly, like Axis Bank, has given the rights to the queer folks to have their nomination with a non-blood relative, and that's okay. Now the dilemma, the fight is between: do we want to get it into the books of constitution? A, that's a question mark. B, should we just focus our energy, resources, and our entire battle on converting the other domains rather than only converting on on the constitution? Because we all know that when we converted the constitution gave us a, did a tick box. I mean, you tick the box kind of obligation towards this community. When transgenders were recognized, we were not given any other benefits. We were not even given to be considered as legal citizen, in spite of the court ordering that transgender folks should be given a legal citizen. It's a battle because the government was clever enough to say that yesterday's ABC today wants to be known as XYZ. How do we sort of, prove that? So a lot of tug of war happens. So honestly speaking, what we as activists are currently doing is turning the tables of other stakeholders rather than only focusing on the constitution or the laws.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer. It was really wonderful. Um, this is one of the last questions that we'd like to ask you in case you have any follow-ups for us. So one of the questions that personally struck me while we were starting the queer column, and currently we're soliciting authors like Rohin Bhatt, Anish Gawande, and Arvind Narayan. So one of the questions that I'm still not sure of an answer is that what role does academia play and what role does activism play in our current lives? Given that we're starting a column for queer authors, what kind of impact do you see that happening? Do you think that entry into academia for queer individuals is even beneficial? Do you think that at the end of the day, activism can even do much when you're against a heteronormative society, against the state structure that does not want to recognize these individuals? Do you think that academia as a tool can even do anything, or do you think that queer individuals should solely focus on activism and getting into the system to change it, or do you think that academia still holds some value to queer activism?
So once again, Satvik, wonderful question, but my personal opinion on this, I hope I'm not judged. um, Satvik, honestly speaking, sorry, Sarthak, honestly speaking, um, I think academia plays a very, very, very important role as showcasing the struggle, the beautiful challenges in the past, in the current, for the coming generation to come. That's the main role that I see. It depicts all the beautiful testimonials, the way, the paving of the path uh, that tomorrow's generation would be walking is actually academia. It's actually what so many institutions are doing. I'm really associated with OP Jindal Law School, which is in Sonipat, and I am very, very, very close to them. I go and held lectures. I'm a close friend of Arvind Narayan, also based out of Bangalore. I have worked with many, many like-minded people, and everybody has their own views, own perception. But honestly speaking, when I see from my lens the beautiful India, I see it as uh, we are making a roadway for many, many, many queer folks to be walking. And that's where the academic role plays an important, integral, passionate role in this. And when I stress on the words like passionate, integral, um, all these beautiful words that I use, it's from here, it's from heart. Because when I wanted a solution on how to fight a particular case, I did not have any references. I think that's where I get the pinch that I wish I had some opportunity. But tomorrow, for tomorrow's kids, I am so proud that those kids will have this references only and only because of you people, you all people who are doing this marvelous job of recording ideologies. Not everyone would exist with me, but there would be one person who would agree with me, and that for me is my proudest moment.
Thank you for that. That was really wonderful. Nidhi, do you want to
Yeah.
take the last questions?
Yeah. Simran, just a final question. Hopefully there'll be a lot of queer kids watching this podcast. Do you have something to say to them?
I think my one sort of message for all the queer folks, young, old, aged, budding, anybody, is believe in yourself, be an advocate, be an activist, live with dignity, and be proud of whoever you are. Because when you don't trust your own self, the world will never trust you. So trust your own self, live with dignity, be proud, live with pride.
That's beautiful. I think Sarthak and I are just gonna cry.
Good.
Uh,
That
this
was
was
really nice. Thank you for that.